All right, we're just about ready to start the county council meeting. So real quick, we'll do a roll call just to confirm everyone's here, and then I'll turn it over to Madam Chair Smith, and we will begin the workshop. So here in the room with me is myself, David Garner, Christy Smith, Mr. John Calhoun, Mr. Charles Goodwin, and Mr. Rick Campbell. On the line, I believe we have Mr. Hal Prince. Can you hear me?
I'm present.
Mr. Jason Bonds.
I can.
And Mr. Drew Simpson. I don't see your camera, but I believe you're logged on. Councilman Simpson, are you?
I'm present.
Okay. All right. And then these meetings, these proceedings are being recorded by GoToMeeting and broadcast by
I'm
you.
present.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I got a little bit of a delay, just so you know, Councilman Simpson. So with that, we will turn the time over to Chairman Smith, and we will proceed with the meeting.
Okay, we'd like to call to order the April 27th, 2020 Abbeville County Council Budget Workshop. And for the Freedom of Information Act, in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act, notice of meetings and agenda have been posted, furnished to news media and persons requesting notification. At this electronic meeting, the chair is present in the executive conference room, and other members of council are present via video conference. To provide public access, this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube and Facebook websites. So with that, I just want to make a motion to go into executive session.
Make a motion. Second chair.
Okay,
Second.
motion made by Councilman Campbell, second by Councilman Goodwin. So I need a yay or nay. So Rick Campbell.
Rick Campbell, yay.
Charles Goodwin, yay.
Okay.
John Calhoun, yay.
Hal Prince.
Did you state the reason why?
Yes, we're going into executive session to discuss a contractual issue with the landfill.
Yay.
Drew Simpson.
No.
Okay. And Councilman Bonds.
No also.
Okay, so motion passes. Chairman Smith is also a yay. Motion passes 5-2. We're now in executive session.
It could be a whole lot.
Well, man, in the house with the grandchildren, bucker anybody.
Well, they can do away with basketball and move football up to there for as long as I care.
They can have football year round.
For real.
Oh, man.
I can watch it year round.
I can't watch it year round.
True, I could.
I can't watch it year round. But they gotta have something, football or something. But they gotta have people understand. I don't like it. They think about basketball and nobody understand. It's not
We're
exciting.
streaming, so
Okay.
we're not gonna need to.
Okay, we are out of executive session and there is nothing that needs to be brought to the public. And saying that, Mr. Garner will start his budget workshop.
All right. So I'm going to give you, there's a lot of changes that we need to note compared with the previous workshop that we had. There's been several committee meetings. I told you a little bit about this at our last council meeting. So some of it will be familiar to you, but this time I'll actually put facts and figures with it. So this is a slide that I always like to show where we are in our budget process. This is our second and final workshop. After this, we will have our second reading on May the 11th. Our final draft, if there's any changes that need to be incorporated between the second and third reading, will be issued on the 1st, and then final reading and adopting of the budget on June the 8th. And then our budget will be approved, and it will take effect on July the 1st. So what has changed since the last time we discussed? Obviously, we're all aware of the coronavirus, COVID-19, the reason why we're having this meeting virtually right now. What council has requested and elected to do since then is pause and remove all personnel requests and raises entirely from the budget, which has been done. Most capital requests were deferred until FY 2022, which will be the next fiscal year. The only, I think there was 2 or 3 minor exemptions from that related to public safety and also, I believe, a motor grader for the roads and bridges. So currently, as it stands today, the contingency sits at $155,495. That's important to know because that is the number that would have gone towards any potential raises or employee changes and capital. So keep that in mind, that that's not a surplus. That is money that if the economy manages to make a rebound quickly, that if our forecasts are correct, would be available for us to actually provide bonuses, the other things, the employee incentives that council has discussed, or to move forward with other purchases. Specifically, I believe we've discussed some public safety purchases, SCBAs and things like that previously. So as it stands today, the general fund is balanced without any further changes.
Question. Go ahead.
I can go ahead and answer questions now if you
I
like.
can ask what, I got a question on that 155,000. We don't use that or whatnot. Could that go into the fund balance?
Yes, sir, it does. Anything that is unused goes into fund balance.
Okay.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
I know some other stuff. Okay.
Normally insurance goes up every year. Did it go up this year?
It did. It did. That was one of the things that I was going to recap on the next slide. But yes, sir, we continue to receive the 1% retirement increase across that's going till 2023, I believe, and also the medical. So the insurance, health and dental and all that, the premiums, the county's cost share, I believe, went up another 6.7 or 7%. So that is part of that as well. That's not part of that contingency, but that's part of the reason why we've had to increase before.
I want this may not be, but concerning EMS, I had a person I know passed out, and they said they couldn't go past Abbeville, right? EMS.
To respond to them?
I mean, take them to the hospital. They couldn't go to Greenwood or whatever.
That's not true. They can.
That's not true. Because they brought him over here and checked him out and brought him back, and then he drove and passed out again. The second time they told him to take him to Greenwood. But I was told, I don't know what they just said, just because of the coronavirus, they couldn't bypass.
Right. Now, normally, that's what I was going to say. Normally, that is correct. Now, there could be special protocols because of coronavirus limiting them from taking a patient over there. That could be the case. So I'd have to ask for a little bit of clarification on that. All right. So just to briefly tell you what's changed for the general fund, the bulk of the changes, what we saw and what we ended up having to adjust. The general property taxes decreased slightly compared to what we were forecasting. We knew and assumed slightly that sales tax was going to be down, so we had to change local option sales tax factor. So some of that is, the property tax relief. That's not something that we can change. We're one of the recipient counties of that, but to make sure that we don't run into the negative on our budget, we have to adjust that for the local taxpayers. So we did that, and then also the sales tax that comes directly to the county. So that was between a $30,000 and $40,000 hit that we took. But we think it's going to be fairly limited outside of that. It should be fairly stable for us in the county. We did not increase personal property. We left that flat. We didn't go up with that for, that's if you buy a new car, valuation of your vehicles and things like that. We left that the same. So if anything, that should decrease for most people. Grants, obviously, that's that large, the large difference from previous years. That's some of the AFG grants that we've applied for, that we've told you about. Charters for services, that includes the EMS billing and whatnot. And everything else is fairly stable in our revenues.
The license and permit, that is more people building houses.
Yes, sir.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, we've seen that continue to increase 10 or $15,000 to $20,000 over the last really 4 years. And according to our building and codes department, will break 40 again this year. So they're very, very busy. So I've already presented on the general fund previously, but this is, I'll only present on the special revenue funds. And these are our expenses. Keep in mind, expenses always marry up because we balance the budget. So you'll see the changes. Rural fire, the only change in rural fire, their revenues haven't decreased. The only thing is previously they had pulled, we had pulled funds from prior year fund balance in rural fire because they had a healthy fund balance. Given the stagnation in the economy, we would prefer not to pull from fund balance, particularly from rural fire, because we know of the revenue generating issues that has, just the way that it's set up, and it doesn't incorporate municipalities. So that's the only change there. The road maintenance, there's that capital purchase. Just so you know, it's so large of a difference from the last year. The first year that we ever do a capital purchase, if we take out borrow the money from the bank, we have to account for the entire loan in that first year. So that's why that's significantly higher. That lease purchase is in there. Victims Advocate, there's a grant in there. That's the reason why it's larger than 2019 levels. That's that $35,000 grant that we apply for every year. Solid Waste still has the capital purchase that was approved last year by council. That was the Kenmore. So this is our second year of paying that. I think it'll be paid off in 2022. So you'll see that decrease. The same thing would happen with road maintenance next year. You would see that 584 road maintenance decrease because we wouldn't be accounting for the entire purchase. We would only be accounting for the payment that year. E911 sub-tariffs, that's 80% reimbursable from the state. So those are everything in that department's budget is reimbursable from the state. So that's something that Barry and Charmel sit down and actually forecast that budget. The public safety fee, still stable. It decreased a little bit. Once again, that's the kind of some of the stagnation in the economy, wanting to make sure that we're conservative with that. The only thing that is different in here that I was able to identify is there was enough money for one capital purchase. The one purchase that we discussed with the finance committee that was not going to be able to be made this year from the capital equipment millage was the code inspector's truck. So we took that excess or that contingency in the public safety fee and applied it towards one vehicle purchase. Because there was enough funding in there. There was no reason not to. We could have increased the contingency in another department like 911 or emergency management, but we thought that it would be better to go ahead and go forward with one of the capital purchases that we were going to miss out on this year, next year, because we had the funding available. That's the only change off of this once we did balance this budget. That's not something that, once again, keep in mind, any vehicles or anything that's purchased like that, council has to approve before that purchase gets made. We can remove it from the budget, and then that money that would go towards that would only be put in towards a contingency.
I mean, considering the situation, the fact that we had said no purchases, I think it needs to be removed. And that's something we can decide on later on when the, the economy does go back. Because, I mean, as a whole, we had decided to not purchase any items except for the couple of things that we did approve, and that wasn't on the list. So.
And it won't change this number. The number's going to be the same.
Right.
I'm putting that in there as a note that was a discussion that Barry and I had. So we can go back and change that. That number will stay the same. It's just where that line item is accounted for, either a capital purchase or as a contingency in a department. So, okay.
Another thing on that same line, David, is that, we talked about the capital purchases of vehicles and things like that. And, you went down to somewhere and found the software program for the shop over there. And we asked you to give us a copy when we got ready to replace a vehicle. Give us a copy of the maintenance sheet. We asked them to let us look at it and see what it costs,
Right.
Mechanically wise to operate that vehicle. If it didn't, we'll buy it just cause we got money to do it. And the vehicle's still in good shape and stuff like that. Then, we'll pass it until we exactly need it, but we hadn't received any information whatsoever on the purchase of our.
So before we make a purchase, I can provide you that. Pilates, our mechanic, keeps paper documents. We did not make the investment in the software because, quite frankly, there's no one to manage the software.
We didn't get software.
We didn't get it. No, I mean it was about an $8,000 purchase for the pro version.
I thought that we bought that software back.
No, I asked for some direction and no one ever said.
Said what happened, and you brought it back to us, but I thought we bought it. Man, my bad.
No, we didn't. We didn't move forward with the purchase. Now, if you want me to bring them back on, I have the demo of it downloaded on my computer.
What we had talked about was the fact that he already had an Excel spreadsheet where he was putting that information, and we were supposed to work with that.
What was that? Okay.
There's not a spreadsheet that he's got actual hand documents, though. That was the.
I think we had discussed maybe him making an Excel spreadsheet or doing something to that effect where it was like in the computer versus handwritten, but as long as he's got record.
He does, yeah.
It's fine.
The landfill, that's the balanced budget. That, like I said, there's about that 234,000 contingency in there. I think that's what I looked at when I looked at it just now. So that won't change. We haven't done any capital purchases in there. Library stays pretty well the same. Animal shelter, the difference in there primarily is the increase due to vet cost and retirement and insurance. We did not account for all of their retirement and insurance in the animal shelter special revenue fund. It doesn't change anything. That doesn't impact their fee. Their fee doesn't go up or down because of that. That's just a transfer into that department to balance it. And finally is the capital equipment millage. That was decreased. The next slide, I'll actually show you the decrease. All the things that are scheduled in there, and if you have any direction, I'm open to it, is the substation. And I think we neglected to talk about sheriff's office vehicles at the finance committee meeting. So we included just an amount of 150,000 in there, a little bit less than what it was the previous year. I think this year we did 185. Right. So we included that in there, not as a, that can be changed. But this is probably the slide that you're most interested in. I went ahead, we've never really recapped this before in this way. We went ahead and this is the projected millage off of the budget as it's presented here and today right now. This is just proposed. This is not anything that's being passed. You're not voting on this tonight, nor are you voting on it necessarily at the second reading. But this is the way the budget is built right now, what it marches out to. The differences, the main changes is the 2 mil increase in the general fund. That is the CPI that, like Mr. Calhoun referenced, almost all goes exclusively towards the retirement and insurance increases to cover that across the entire county. But what you won't see are the addition, or I'm sorry, is the removal of the county office building bond. That has been paid off this year. And then also the 2015 series GO bond has been paid off. The other decreases in the capital equipment millage. That's 3.3 mils is all that was needed to the items that I just discussed just now. So you'll see the total millage decreased by just shy of 5 mils, 135.7 last year to 130.8 this year, largely due to not reissuing new bonds, but also, like I said, that decrease in capital equipment millage. To the right is just for your information. Those are the fees that are assessed. Those have not changed. That's just to give you a breakdown of that. So you can see and hang your hat on. These are pretty good figures. That is a just shy of 5 mil decrease of county taxes across the board. So this will be vehicles, personal property, real property, everything. 66,000. 66,000. So take that and multiply that out. That's a total.
3 points. 3.7 thousand. I mean, 100,000, 300 and some thousand. 5 bills. 6 bills.
That is largely the presentation that I have. Like I said, everything's balanced. I can go back and change anything if there's any discussion, any questions that you want to ask of me. But I thought this was the most pertinent slide for me to kind of give you the forecast, because I know the millage had been discussed and questions asked several times, and this is kind of the brass tacks of it.
Can you put together something that shows per $100,000 home how much the decrease will be, so people can kind of see that as a?
Absolutely, we can do that. I don't think Barry's on the line, but we can do that. The auditor can give us that pretty easily, and we'll do it on a $50,000, $100,000, $150,000, and $200,000 home. What that equates to.
Okay.
Can get that. Any other questions or comments? Any other direction?
We hadn't, what's called?
What's that?
We hadn't mentioned memorial.
Right.
Have you heard anything from, you said that last person you talked to, one of the reps?
I have not. When we talked at the state level, we were going to work with some trying to lobby a couple of groups. Last discussion I had was in January about that, but then when the coronavirus started, the legislature essentially shifted almost all of their focus exclusively towards that and relief. So it has not been anything that was even brought up since about January, February.
I'd like to see that come fast.
I mean, council could just as easily move forward with doing something from their contingency with that if that was a move that you wanted to make.
I mean,
But I'm not
longer
right
it
now,
takes-
not
I
right
mean,
now, cause with
no,
the
right,
with
but
the situation that
Sure.
we're in though.
as long as, I know, once everything gets back
Yeah,
on track,
right.
as long as it's taking for this grant to come in, I mean,
I just want us to keep
we
it on
have
the
the
table.
money, so.
I want us to keep it on the table,
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we were hoping to kind of get more of an appropriation from that.
Right.
That's what we were really hoping for. Yeah, but we won't move forward with anything, no capital purchases in the landfill. There's no other changes in that. So the budget that you receive for the second reading in May will be the final reading, or not the final reading, but will be the final budget. And unless you feel the inclination and give me any direction to change it, there's a committee that meets and discusses to change it. That'll also be the third, the final version for third reading as well. Councilman Prince or Bonds or Simpson, did you have any questions or anything that you wanted to ask or offer?
One thing on the grants that you had figured in the budget, are those guaranteed, meaning with how this virus has affected the whole state economy?
No, they could change at any time. Obviously, I mean, they're not guaranteed even that you get an award, but also the funding levels could change as well. The ones that we've applied for so far, I think the funding levels have already been approved at the federal level, so they likely wouldn't change. But next year, yeah, there's always that possibility that grants that we're looking at applying for next year, the funding levels could change and we could kind of be ruled out and excluded from them. Any other questions or comments?
I just saw the state say, a while back, they were saying how much they were losing because we won't have as many tourists coming to the state. So I'm assuming maybe next year we'll get less money.
Absolutely.
That is one question that's been floated around at the state level, and they haven't really come out and said is the local government fund, the LGF, they just revised the formula last year. So that could, we're still budgeting off of receiving the same thing that we did last year. We haven't received any direction from the Association of Counties or from Revenue and Fiscal Affairs that says that it will be different. But once again, that calculation is tied to the state budget, so it very well could. But until the state passes a budget, there's no way for us to know. Councilman Bonds, Councilman Simpson, did you have any questions or anything to offer?
I'm good.
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Well, that's all that I have, so I'll turn the meeting back over to the chairman.
Need someone to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Motion made by Councilman Bonds, seconded by Councilman Prince. Now I need to see who all's in favor. So,
Councilman Goodwin. Yay.
okay.
Councilman Calhoun, yay.
Councilman Campbell, yay.
Okay, Councilman Prince,
Councilman Prince, yay.
Councilman Simpson,
Councilman Simpson, yay.
Councilman Bonds,
Councilman Bonds, yeah.
Chair Smith is also a yay. So we are adjourned.
Y'all did a good job.
Yeah.
David.